MAP4C 4.3 surveys and questionnaires. What we're going to learn in this section is the different ways that we can gather information in a survey. So a population is all members of a group being studied, while a sample is a group of items or people selected from the population. So if this is the target population, we take a sample from a population to try to get information about the larger group. It's oftentimes time-consuming as well as expensive or sometimes challenging to get every single member assessed. So we use the sample to try to be representative of everyone in the population. So, assessing the sample needs to be typical of the entire population. This is called a representative sample. If the sample is not representative, it is biased and the survey results are invalid. In other words, this sample should be reflective of the attributes and characteristics of people in the population. For example, if we were to take a sample of people in this population and the sample had only males, it might not be an accurate reflection of what this total group thinks or feels. So we're going to discuss the different types of sampling techniques, and there's many, but they fall into two categories: random techniques and non-random techniques. So a simple random sample, each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. You could think of this as drawing the name from a hat in a class. Everyone has an equally likely chance of being selected. A stratified sample, the population is divided into subgroups and a random sample is selected in proportion to its size in the population. So this is similar to the number of seats in the House of Commons, where based on the population of each province and territory being different, every single group is given a number of seats roughly proportionate to the number of people in each group. So it's proportionally fair. Cluster sampling. So the population is divided into clusters and a certain number of clusters are chosen. So that would be like, for example, if we were trying to understand how McDonald's employees are feeling during this pandemic, we could sample just a couple of these sites, and that would give us a pretty good understanding of what the population would look like, because each of those groups are representative of all employees at McDonald's. Systematic sampling. Every nth member of the population is selected. So that could mean that we're selecting maybe every 10th employee on a list to get information about that individual. Non-random techniques. Convenient sampling. The sample contains those members of the population from which data are gathered most easily. So that being said, we could get a secondary source, such as going to Statistics Canada and gathering that information, or asking people who are in very close proximity. Judgment sampling is when you have an expert who is selecting individuals based on what they feel is a representative sample. And voluntary sampling, the sample contains those members of the population who have chosen to respond to the survey. Okay, so we are identifying the types of different surveys. We will investigate the advantages and drawbacks of each. So assessing the survey. A survey question should not be biased. A biased question restricts the choices unnecessarily or use words that could influence people to answer in a certain way. People may be more likely to answer truthfully if the survey is anonymous. So some good questions to review before taking the conclusion of a survey at face value. Is the sample size large enough? Small sample sizes can have very different data than the entire population. So the more people that are involved in the survey, the more likely it is that that sample group is reflective of the population. More people are involved. Is the sample representative? So if you were to ask people who stayed after school for sports if they think that a new grant from the government should go towards fitness equipment, that group would likely have opinions that are different than the majority. So it's not a representative sample. Are the survey questions unbiased? So persuasive questions will lead to invalid results, and you need to assess whether or not it's free from bias. Was the collection method appropriate? Given that we have all of our options, is this going to get a group that is representative?